Welcome to this week's fishing report / what's been happening in around the world of fishing this week. I thought I would start a brand new weekly fishing video podcast, whereas I'm talking about the fishing reports and some stuff that's been happening around fishing throughout the week. This will also be available on podcast platforms as well. So if you subscribe to Realcast on any of the podcast platforms, you can also get that as a more mobile version as well. So yeah, welcome to the first episode of the fishing reports / what's been happening in fishing this week. We'll figure out a title as we go, I guess. But for now, that's going to be the title. So to start with, let's get into the weather for this weekend. We have a south-southwesterly blowing for the majority of Saturday. South-southwesterly, remember when I'm talking about this, we're talking about Sydney. A south-southwesterly blowing at about 50 to 40 kilometres throughout Saturday. So that, for me, that's pretty much going to take Saturday out of the equation in regards to going for a fish. But Sunday looks a lot more positive, especially once we get past that sort of midday to late afternoon. We've got a dropping south-southwest wind. So throughout both days, we have a south-southwest, and it's going to be dropping around about that midday mark. So maybe the Sunday afternoon fish is where I'm going to be targeting or looking at to go fishing. The last couple of weeks in fishing, we haven't been able to go out as often because we've had a lot of rain, a lot of wind, a lot of swell, and not a lot of conditions that have been conducive to fishing. So looking ahead, it's looking like a Sunday afternoon. It's going to be great. If you would like to go fishing on Saturday and you want to know where to go, obviously somewhere that's protected from the southwest. So if we're looking anywhere let's start in the Sydney Harbour region, anywhere around that Parramatta River area will be hopefully protected for you guys through that south-southwest. Moving further south down to Botany Bay, you've got places like Towra, Georges River, Warrenora River would also be a good shot throughout there to just be protected. More than anything, that's the biggest part, is actually making sure that you're protected from that wind, because it's blowing 40 to 50 Ks all weekend. It could be quite a tough day, and you don't want to be out exposed, especially to that wind on that Saturday. So yeah, anywhere for that southwesterly and you're in a southwestern spot, you're going to be definitely protected from that. Going into Port Hacking, Northwest Arm, Southwest Arm are going to be your two big ones where you can hopefully be protected again from that wind on the Saturday. Moving on to Sunday, we've got a very nice afternoon, what looks to be predicted to be a very nice afternoon. It's going to be shifting from a southwest to eventually a westerly in the coming days. So that shifting breeze also really, really helps, because it won't shift from a southwest or a southerly to a westerly at a consistent pattern. You'll find that there'll be patches or a couple hours of lulls in between as it swings from, say, from a south to a southwesterly or a south-southwesterly. Any type of wind direction change, there is a lull in between. Depending on how big that shift is, will depend on how long that lull is. Sometimes the lulls only last 20 minutes. Some of them last a couple of hours. And if you can look at your fishing reports and look at your weather charts, you should be able to see it shift and notice that there's a little lull there. There might be only a 2-3 hour window, but if you can, head out and have a fish. But speaking of Sunday morning, it should drop off to about 25, 26 Ks an hour from the southwest throughout the morning, and slowly dropping off by about 2 o'clock should be just below 20 kilometers an hour. So not a massive drop off, but enough to be able to find some really, really fishable grounds and be more open to a lot more spots. Once I've figured out the wind and where it's coming from, I'm then going to start looking at other things. So I'm looking at the swell. The swell doesn't look too great, especially on Saturday. We've got a 3.3 meter swell actually predicted, and it's not predicted to drop off till about Monday. Offshore fishing, when I'm starting to think about where I want to go fishing, is pretty much not going to be on the cards for me in regards to that. Going into more detail about Sunday, the swell again is backing off, but by the time it becomes sunset, it's still 2 meters swell. So it's going from 3 down to 2 meters. Probably not going to be great. If you have the day off during the week and the swells drop right off, your snapper's going to be biting after this big southwesterly blow and lots of swell. The snapper are going to be in shallow. So if you've got an afternoon off or a morning off, head out to the snapper grounds throughout the week. We also have a slightly rising barometer. So it's going to be starting at about 1,025, raising to 1,027, and then slowly dropping back off to 1,025, 1,026 throughout the day. So If you see a really sharp rise in the air pressure, and it can just be a couple of degrees as well over the weekend, again, that Sunday morning could be the really good one because we have got a rising pressure and barometer. So that's something to look at. Tides-wise, we've got a high tide at 5 o'clock, a low tide at 11:30, and then a high tide again at 5:50. So tides are really good. The tides are around, sunrise and sunset, which is a really good thing to do. And it's just about which tide you're going to be thinking about fishing on that Saturday or Sunday. If you're going to be fishing in the morning, you're going to be fishing that run out tide, maybe fishing all those banks, the sandy banks, and waiting for the bait to come off towards the bottom end of that tide. So the bottom end of that tide will start around about 8 o'clock on Sunday. That means it will start about 7:30 on the Saturday as well. So, and it's a pretty decent tide in regards to the height as well. So we've got a 1.3 high down to a 0.5. So quite a fair amount of water is going to be pushing around, which is really, really good for fishing. And then in the afternoon, it goes back up to a 1.4 from a 0.5. So again, really, really strong tide this for Sunday. So really, really good tides to be. If you're going to be fishing in the morning, I'd be anchoring / drifting all of those sandy drop-offs and targeting flathead, brim, whiting, all that sort of stuff. They should still be around. They might be a bit tougher as the water's getting a lot colder. They might be a little bit deeper in regards to the drop-offs. They'll still be around there. It's just about going maybe a touch deeper, fishing maybe 6 to 8 meters instead of 4 to 5 or 2 to 3. As long as it's still near that drop-off where that bait's going to be running off those flats, you should be able to still get amongst a few really, really nice fish. Sunday afternoon, if you're going to be fishing the run-in tide, you just flip tack. If you flip your tactics there, you start really, really deep and you work shallow and shallower as the tide will run up into the flats and become a high tide. So run out tides, you're going to start really, really shallow, work all the way out to the deep as the tide goes to the very bottom. And then as the tide comes back up, you're going to start at the deep spot and then work your way all the way to the shallows, depending on what time of the day. If you're going to be fishing all day, that's a really good tactic to be able to use. Our moon phase for the weekend, we're leading into a full moon phase. Leading into the full moon phase, I really, really like, especially for snapper. But of course, swell and the wind and the weather has not played its part for me and my boat this weekend. So we got a nice full moon coming up very, very soon. We got some moon sets and moon rises. We got some really good, a good moon rise in the afternoon. That could also play a part. So that might be even another tick for me to go fish that Sunday afternoon and see how we go. Apart from that, there's the moon sets at 2:21. Not really much to worry about. Moon below at 8:30 and the moon above at 8:50. Not really much to worry about. It's more that moon rise at that 2:30 mark, which is pretty close to where that tide change will be as well. Pretty close. So that could be a really good afternoon fish. First light's going to be around about 6 o'clock and then sun that last light about 5:30. So maybe it's an afternoon fish on Sunday for me. So that's the weather for the weekend. We've got a southerly blowing pretty much all weekend. Some pretty good overhead conditions. Saturday looks like it's going to be raining a little bit, whereas Sunday's looking to be a lot clearer. And the wind dropping off on that Sunday, that southwesterly slowly dropping off as the afternoon proceeds. Got some really good tide changes in the morning if you want to go fish the tide changes and bear yourself against the wind and all that sort of stuff and the elements, go ahead. But if you want a bit more calmer conditions, maybe not the tide changes that you would like, but there should still be some nice fish rolling about in that afternoon. Moving on to the fishing report. Fishing report for this week and the last couple of weeks has been based mainly around jewfish. Rain events and fishing after lots of rain, the jewfish will be hanging around those deep holes against the bridges, against reefs, all that sort of stuff where bait should be holding. And generally that's where they're going to be, especially after rain events. They always seem to be a lot more consistent around these rain events. Hopefully the plan might be when I first get out on Sundays, try for a little jewfish for a couple of hours and then see where we go from there. Anything else in regards to the fishing report? Port Aiken's been fishing really well. We're expecting to see a lot of salmon coming in over the next couple of weeks. So maybe they've already come in, and because of the rain and stuff, the salmon like a lot of clear water and waiting for that water to really clear to sort of start seeing those big schools of salmon to come through, which is a great fun in winter. I bought a little fly rod the last month and I haven't been able to use it yet. I've been wanting to use it on the salmon and some surface feeding fish, but we haven't really had much surface feeding fish over the last month. So I've just been busy out back practicing how to cast with it because I'm not that great with it at the moment. Anyway, Keep moving forward, moving into Botany Bay. Again, there's still a lot of flathead around that 4 to 5 meter mark in the bay there. There's still a lot of fish out there. There should be some snapper in the shallow reefs off La Perouse there. If you can brave yourself around the heads and the swell's not going to be too bad, then yeah, you can definitely go ahead and start fishing for them. The kingfish are still around. They should be around for the next couple of weeks. I feel like it's going to really die off though the next couple of weeks, and only captures of maybe 1 to 2 every session might be something to have a look at. If you're still wanting to try and catch a kingfish, they're still around. They're just very, very hard to find at the moment. Moving into the Georges River, again, Jewfish are the one thing that a lot of people are targeting over the last couple of weeks. Lots of dews after this rain event. If you can find little pockets where you've got tide changes, you've got moon rises all mixing together, you should be able to find quite a few very, very nice Jewfish throughout the systems. So around these rain events, there's a lot of safety that you need to think about as well and consider. Boat ramps are really, really key. So boat ramps will collect a lot of the debris that might have been washed off because we have higher water levels from all of the rain events. So I know at my local boat ramp at Swallow Rock there, it will collect a lot of the trees, stumps, big logs and all that sort of stuff from the national park side with that water level rising. It will collect it all, and it often will push across to the Swallow Rock side and be collected amongst the boat ramp there and the wharf and also along the beaches and stuff like that. So making sure you check the ramp before you actually go and launch. So once you've pulled up in the ramp, you just better undo all the straps and get everything ready before you start fishing. It would pay to go and actually have a wander down to the ramp and make sure there's no logs or anything lying around. So when you go to back the trailer down, one, you're not backing straight over a log, or two, you're not hopefully getting it caught under a wheel in your car or anything like that and damaging either the trailer, boat, or your car. So especially after rain events, where we've had lots of rain over the last couple of weeks, just take the time, take the extra couple of minutes, go check the ramp, see what it looks like, see what the wharf looks like, see where you're going to stick your boat and tie off while you go take your car back to the parking bays. Just quickly have a look around, make sure there's nothing of danger that can cause, your boat to have any damage on it or anything like that. Same with once you start going out to your spot, especially around low lights, so sunrise and sunset, slow down. Absolutely slow down, because there's going to be floating logs, and what looks like to be a floating log of 5 centimeters could be a 150 kilo tree that's fallen down and you just can't see underneath the water and only a little bit's poking out. There's been so many stories of that, as we all know. People's skegs and propellers getting absolutely ripped apart and new motors having to be fitted to boats purely because they just thought it was a little stick that they could run over, and it was absolutely huge tree trunk underneath the water. So safety around those rain events, slowing down, making sure that you can go around those sticks and stuff. And if there's a lot in the water, slow right down and take your time to weave through all of them as much as you can, because obviously there's other boats on the water. They might not be taking as much caution as you are, and making sure that you are aware of all the other boats around as well. So low light conditions, yeah, definitely slow right down. Make sure you're watching ahead of you. Make sure you know that, even what looks to be a tiny stick could actually be a really, really big log underneath there. Next thing, how to fish after rain events. We've been talking about rain events this episode and talking about a lot after rain events and how to be safe and all that sort of stuff. The next thing is how to fish after them. You can sort of take it in two ways, and I sort of take two strategies over the last couple of years where we've had lots of rain events around this time of year. We have the change of season, autumn and spring. We've had a lot of rain leading into summer and winter. And I've sort of figured out a few patterns. You can take it in two ways, like I just said before. One, you can go really, really shallow because the water's really dirty. The only reason why you would go really, really shallow, especially around this time of year, is if the water's still a bit warm. So it's still above that 18 degrees. That's when the fish are still pretty active in those shallow waters. So the whiting would still be up there. The flathead would still be up there. The bream, etc., would all still be up there chasing a lot of bait and stuff like that and chasing a feed, because that water is still warm and very conducive for them to be up there. Next thing that I guess you can think about in relation to that as well is when the high tide actually happens. So the high tide over the weekend is obviously at sunrise and sunset. If it was in the middle of the day, it's probably be good to go up in the flats because it's had a couple of hours to really warm up that extra couple of degrees where the fish could actually want to push up out of their normal comfort zones and push into those shallow flats. And you could have a really good time because that dirty water is at that extra bit of coverage for you and a bit of hiding, and it just makes it a bit easier to move around. They don't spook as easily and all that sort of stuff. The second tactic I take is go really, really deep. Go to my deeper spots where there's structure that holds fish rather than just a deep spot that's sandy. Going to a deep spot where it's got a bit of gravel or a bit of reef, weed, whatever it is that can hold some fish and there's some bait around. That's what I'm going to be doing over the weekend. So there's my two tacks, I guess. My plan A will be to go a bit deeper because I haven't got the tide to. Maybe as the tide gets a bit higher towards that sunset, I might push up and see what the water temperature is like and see if it's conducive. But for the first one, definitely going to deep, but not just going to your first deep spot, dropping a bait down and drifting around. If you have a sounder and you know how to use your sounder, you know how to set it up properly so you understand what the bait looks like, what fish look like, all that sort of stuff. If you can do that, that's going to help you because your first spot where you normally catch a lot of fish in the deep spot, they might not have any fish on it at all. And you have to go to your second or third spot and you might have wasted 2.5 hours jumping around from spot to spot to find out where the fish actually is. But instead, if you spend that extra 5-10 minutes just literally sounding around, keeping the motor in gear and just sounding around that spot where you think you'll be drifting, you'll be able to automatically know, is there a sign of life? Is there bait there? Is there fish, nice arches underneath that bait? Or are they pushed higher up in the water column? And what does that look like? All that sort of stuff. And then you should be able to work out and formulate a plan from there. Okay, so to recap that, sound around all of your spots. If your first one looks really promising, do a drift, see what happens. If it's looking a bit 50-50, I'd go to another spot and compare them both and see what's what, because you just never know. It could be a lot better in that other spot or it could be a lot worse. Therefore, then okay, I'm going to go back to that first spot. That first spot looked way better than the second spot where I sounded over. But you could also go to that second spot and be like, oh my God, this place is absolutely stacked with fish. This is where I'm going to fish. Okay, and that small window, that's probably where they could be right then and there. So definitely something to think about and something to use, especially after these rain events. Next thing for our lure fishermen, if you're not a bait fisherman like yourself, you like your lures, going to darker colors is going to work. Yes, you can go to fluoro pinks and yellows and greens and all that sort of stuff, but I'm more of a natural color. I like my natural colors for my lures. I'm going to just go to my darker end of my lures. So like your bloodworm colors, all that sort of stuff, your mustard, your motor oil, all those sort of colors, to not match the water clarity, but only just be a couple of shades away from that water clarity rather than having something that completely stands out. I find that can reduce your catch rate because it's too out of the blue for the fish, and the fish are like, I don't think this is a bait or an offering that I want to take. Another really, really good one is soft vibes or even the metal blades. The vibration in the water, especially for jewfish, like we're talking about, if you can get those Samaki soft vibes, they're going to be really, really good this weekend. One, the vibration in the water will attract fish from far away. They'll come in, have a look at it. Yep, that's something I want to eat, and grab it. So definitely something to look at. Using the right color, the lure color is crucial, especially after rain events. And two, using those vibes if you've got them as well. They're also really, really easy to use. If you're not much of a lure fisherman, vibes are definitely the way to go if you're looking to get into them. On to the gear of the week. Throughout the week, when I'm scrolling through social media and stuff like that, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the sorts of platforms, on YouTube, all that sort of stuff, often fishing things will pop up on my social media platform as well. And often it's fishing products. So I thought each week I would do like a fishing gear of the week. And this week we've got an LED boat bung. So it's a boat bung with an electrical cord on it that you still screw in like your normal bung, but it actually is a bung, but also an LED light at the same time. So it's a blue light, a red light, whatever one you want. Most of the time people will use the blue lights to attract the squid and stuff like that as well. The biggest thing is with these ones, although they might be a really cool thing and you have to obviously hook it up to a battery and stuff like that, although they can be a good addition, rather than drilling holes into your boat like I've done to get underwater lights set up and all that sort of stuff. Instead of doing that, obviously you're only using the bung. Biggest thing with this, although I'm not being super critical of this item, I would carry a spare bung just in case. A normal bung, not another LED bung. Just carry a spare bung just in case, because a lot of the reviews that I've seen from them is you can't over tight them. And if you do, they break, they leak, boats sink. So yeah, you've got to be very aware of that. Although it is a great item, it's very easy to use. If you don't want to use it, you don't want your underwater lights this time, you can just leave it out and put your normal bung in. I like that sort of interchangeability of it, and especially for people who have smaller boats that might not have underwater lights and stuff like that. It's a great addition to have on your boat, especially when you're going bait fishing or squid fishing, or you just need a little bit of extra light at those low light conditions. Yeah, 100%. I agree. It's a great idea. You just got to be very aware of not over tightening it. Obviously tightening enough so no water comes in, but not over tightening it so you might break the seals and stuff like that. And make sure you carry not just one spare bung. I always carry two, because you never know. That first one could absolutely break in your moment of panic, and you just need that extra spare one. You can never have enough spare bungs. They are going to save your ass when it comes to that moment of panic. But anyway, that's the fishing report for this week. And as usual, wearing my Seven Seas apparel. I've got a Seven Seas cap, Seven Seas apparel, new shirt, new long sleeve shirt. There's hoodies, all sorts of stuff available for you guys. If you want to go to sevenseasapparel.com, use code REALFishing10. That's REEL Fishing 10 to save yourself 10% off. Go ahead and have a look at their gear that is available for them. They're also going to be down at a few markets. If you follow them on social media, there's a few markets that they have, and it'd be great to come and see some people down there, because I'll be down at some of these markets as well. It'd be great to see some fans and stuff like that coming around saying hello and all that sort of stuff. So hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all enjoyed the first episode. Leave me some feedback. What would you like to hear more of? What would you like to hear less of? And yeah, I'll see you in next week's fishing report. Peace out.